They told you your thoughts were harmless, just passing clouds, just mental noise. They lied. Your thoughts are not passive, they're not background, they're not neutral, they're causal. Every belief you hold, every thought you repeat, every image you carry in your mind is shaping the frequency of your field. And your field? That's the blueprint of your reality. This is the core of thought alchemy, not wishful thinking, not toxic positivity, not shallow affirmations. Real thought. Alchemy is about understanding one thing. The world does not happen to you. It responds to your signal. And that signal begins in the mind, not the surface mind, but the deeper layers, the subconscious loops, the inherited programs, the unspoken rules you live by without ever realizing it. They didn't want you to know this, because if you did, you'd stop playing the victim. You'd stop begging for change. You'd realize you're already creating every second, every day, whether you're aware of it or not. So they banned these teachings. They called it heresy. They mocked it as pseudoscience. They buried it in dusty esoteric texts and secret orders, while giving you mindset hacks and productivity tools instead. But the ancient adepts knew the truth. That thought is not just personal, it's electromagnetic. It carries a frequency, and frequency is the organizing force behind form. This is not just mystical metaphor. This is physics. Your brain emits measurable waves, alpha, beta, theta, gamma. Each frequency alters the state of your body, your mood, and your environment. Every sustained thought entrains your biology, and over time, repeated thoughts collapse into form, situations, patterns, people, paths. You're not thinking about your life. You're thinking it into existence. But here's where it gets dangerous. For them, once you learn how to direct thought with awareness, not reactively, not fearfully, not from ego, you become a reality bender. You stop outsourcing power. You stop waiting for circumstances. You start emitting from alignment. And reality has no choice but to match your signature. This is what the alchemists knew. That the great work was not about turning lead into gold, it was about turning thought into truth. And the real philosopher's stone? It wasn't a crystal. It was a calibrated mind, one that sees clearly, focuses precisely, and emits consistently. You have that stone, you've just never been taught to use it, because the system needs you scattered, doubting, conflicted, split between fear and desire. Because a mind in conflict emits static, and static is easy to control. But a mind in coherence, that's a transmission tower, and that tower can bend the world. Once upon a time, thought wasn't just personal, it was ritual. In ancient Egypt, thought was a divine force. Thoth, the god of wisdom, wasn't just a scribe, he was a creator. It was said he spoke the world into being. The same was believed in India. In the beginning was Om, vibration, sound, thought. Creation didn't explode, it resonated. And in the hermetic tradition, all is mind, not metaphor, law. They understood that the universe is not a place, it's a mind field, and we don't live inside it passively. We participate in it actively through perception, attention, intention. So what happened to these teachings? They were burned, silenced, labeled occult, and replaced with doctrine that told you the divine was far away and your thoughts were meaningless. Why? Because a population that understands the power of focused thought is a population that cannot be controlled. If your attention is sovereign, your energy is sovereign. And if your energy is sovereign, you're not programmable. That's what they couldn't risk. So they handed you noise, distraction, endless stimulation. They gave you a screen to scroll instead of a vision to hold. They gave you fear so your signal would collapse into chaos. They taught you to worship logic, but ignore clarity. And worst of all, they made you think your thoughts don't matter, but they do. They always have. Because thought is creative command, not just the words in your head, but the images you carry. Because here's the secret most people never realize. The subconscious doesn't think in words, it thinks in symbols. And whatever image you carry in your inner world, of yourself, of life, of love, becomes a template the outer world copies. This is why trauma keeps recreating itself. Not because you're broken, but because your internal movie hasn't changed. And the universe? It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you are. So if you think you're unworthy, you bend reality to reflect that belief. But if you shift your signal, even slightly, the world responds. Not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. This is the essence of thought alchemy. Recognize your current frequency. Recode the image you carry. Sustain that image through repetition, feeling, and embodied action. Do this long enough, and what once seemed impossible starts showing up like coincidence. But it was never luck. It was transmission. You're already doing this. You've just been doing it unconsciously. Now, the work begins to do it on purpose. They tell you to think positive. They tell you to manifest. They hand you watered-down mantras and half-baked affirmations. But thought alchemy is not about being positive. It's about being precise. Because thought doesn't just respond to words. It responds to clarity, to coherence, to alignment. That means your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your internal image must speak the same language. Most people fail at manifestation not because they lack belief, but because their signal is split. They say abundance, but they feel lack. They write intentions, but they act from fear. They visualize freedom, but their nervous system is bracing for collapse. And the universe doesn't listen to your words. It listens to your vibration. You are a tuning fork. Every thought you repeat is a strike against that fork, and your field vibrates accordingly. If you strike doubt, you resonate insecurity. If you strike blame, you project disempowerment. But when you strike clarity, when your vision is sharp, embodied, and emotionally charged, you shift the lattice of reality itself. This is not magic, it's resonance. Resonance is why tuning forks vibrate in harmony. It's why your energy draws patterns that match your inner truth, down to the people you meet, the numbers you see, the random events that occur. Thought alchemy teaches you how to work with that law, not against it. And it begins here. 1. Identify the loop. What story are you unknowingly repeating? 2. Interrupt the pattern through breath, stillness, or direct inquiry. 3. Replace the image, not just with thoughts, but with emotional charge and sensory clarity. 4. Anchor it daily, with movement, language, and presence. This is the work of an energetic sculptor, of a conscious architect, not of a believer, but of a creator. And if you're still here, still watching, still feeling this, then you're already doing it. You're remembering. Subscribe and hit the bell. This isn't a mindset channel. This is for architects of frequency. Because here's the part they really didn't want you to know. You don't need to fight the old reality. You just need to stop feeding it with your focus. Energy flows where attention goes. So the most radical act of rebellion? Direct your thought like a laser. Because in a world trying to fracture your mind, holding a coherent signal is a superpower. And now I'll ask you this. What thought loop are you finally ready to break, so your reality can evolve without dragging your past behind it? Drop it in the comments. Say it with clarity. That's how transformation begins. The conscious mind is a trickster. It tells you you're in control. It shows you what it thinks you want to see. But behind it, beneath it, within it, is the real driver, the subconscious. If your conscious mind is the pilot, your subconscious is the autopilot. And it doesn't take commands from thoughts alone. It responds to repetition, emotion, symbol, pattern, and most of all, safety. That's why no amount of surface-level positivity works if your nervous system doesn't feel safe with the outcome. Say all the affirmations you want. If your body doesn't believe it's safe to succeed, you'll subconsciously sabotage it. That's not weakness, that's survival. The subconscious is the guardian of your frequency. It will protect the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. This is where thought alchemy becomes more than thinking. It becomes feeling, rewiring, embodiment. Because if you want to shift your external world, you must become fluent in the language of the inner field. Here's how. The subconscious doesn't understand want. It understands images, sensations, and states. When you rehearse the version of yourself that already has the life, love, purpose, or power you seek, and when you infuse that rehearsal with breath, feeling, and presence, the subconscious accepts it as now. And once it accepts that image as current, it begins to bend your behavior, your attention, and your energy to match it. You don't just think different, you become different. And that changes everything. You walk differently, you make different decisions, you feel differently around the same people, because you're not seeking from lack, you're creating from frequency. The ancient mystics knew this. They didn't just sit and visualize, they chanted, danced, breathed, fasted, because those actions imprinted the new state into the field. It wasn't superstition, it was neuroenergetic precision. And today, science is finally catching up. We now know the heart emits a coherent signal when you're emotionally aligned, that your gut, your second brain, is constantly sending data to the head. Your field is not just mental, it's somatic, it's electromagnetic. You are not broadcasting your thoughts, you're broadcasting your state. And that state becomes your reality tunnel, the version of the world that mirrors back who you believe you are. So ask yourself, what's the loop you've lived inside for so long? You thought it was reality, because once you change the signal, the simulation has no choice but to adapt. And that is the true secret they buried. You are not reacting to reality. Reality is reacting to you. The deeper you go into thought alchemy, the less you're trying to get things from the world, and the more you realize you're already shaping the world by being you. Not the version of you with goals and plans, the version of you that's emitting frequency right now, through thought, emotion, body, breath, posture, belief. Here's where it gets quantum. Reality isn't solid, it's responsive. Every observation alters the field. Every expectation influences the outcome. This isn't New Age fluff. It's fundamental quantum mechanics. A particle doesn't exist in a single location until it is observed. Until then, it's a wave of probability. Now apply that to your life. Every decision, person, opportunity, and path you could possibly take exists in a kind of probability field, waiting for your attention to collapse one into form. And what decides what collapses? Your mental and emotional state, not your logic, not your effort, not even your desire, your frequency. That means you're not here to chase reality, you're here to transmit what reality should become. And the cleaner your signal, the more precise your mirror. That's why thought alchemy is not about forcing outcomes. It's about becoming a match to a reality that already exists and allowing it to land. And that requires responsibility. Because once you accept that you're not just reacting to reality, but generating it, you can no longer play small. You can't blame the algorithm. You can't blame the job. You can't blame your past. You realize it's all feedback. Every experience is the universe showing you your current signal, not to shame you, to inform you. That's the alchemist's lens. They didn't look at failure and say, "I'm broken." They said, "The frequency is off. Time to adjust." They didn't chase validation. They radiated truth. They held the inner image until the outer world had no choice but to comply. This is what bends reality. Precision in thought, depth in feeling, integrity in action, stillness in the void. From that state, you don't try, you transmit, and the world listens. Because now, you're not echoing old wounds, you're not looping old code, you're coding new timelines. With every thought you refuse to abandon, you become dangerous. Not because you're loud, but because your signal is clean. Before fire, before tools, before language, there was thought. It was the first alchemy, the first spell, the first technology of creation, and you carry it still, not in books, not in gadgets, but in your awareness. You were born into a world that taught you to obey reality, to measure it, to fear it, to submit to what is. But the alchemists knew, reality is not a law, it's a mirror, and the mirror reflects not what you say, but what you hold. So now you must ask, what have you been unconsciously broadcasting? What silent assumptions have you carried so long you mistook them for truth? That you're not enough, that change is hard, that others have the power. Those thoughts aren't neutral, they're codes. And every time you repeat them, you write them deeper into the simulation. But here's the real secret. The simulation is yours to edit. It always has been. Not because you're special, but because you're aware. Awareness is the source code, and you are holding the cursor. So will you keep running loops that someone else wrote for you? Or will you begin to write something new? Not by force, not by fantasy, but by precision of thought, stability of nervous system, and fidelity to the inner vision. Because the mind is not just a mirror, it's a brush, and reality is the canvas. You can paint trauma, or you can paint truth. You can project fear, or you can encode beauty, but you can't do both at once. So this is the point of return, where you stop asking, what should I do? And you start asking, who must I become to match the frequency of the life I'm here to create? That's thought alchemy. It doesn't start with answers, it starts with better questions. So here's yours. What's one belief you're ready to retire, so your reality can finally reflect who you actually are? Drop it in the comments, say it clearly, say it powerfully, because this isn't a question for views, it's a question for your field. And the next video, we'll go even deeper into how the system hijacks your thoughts before you even know you're thinking them. Let's keep sculpting the signal.